You know, you don't just do your affairs for. Okay, there's a way. There are laws in place, there are regulations in place, and you follow those, then you actually even benefit from following the law. I was telling you earlier that I received an email from Kenya Revenue Authority last night. Can I read you that email again? From the Kenya Revenue Authority. Coming on the 21st day of December, a day after the 20th.
Dear Eric.
No, dear esteemed customer.
Bas.
The headline of the email, tax issues, question mark, to the sought out of court.
Apo.
So then they say that your tax disputes can now be resolved through mediation for free through alternative dispute resolution, saving you from lengthy legal processes and costs. ADR is a transparent process that has both parties' interests at heart and is conducted online by trained tax experts. Download the ADR application form from www.kra.go.ke and submit the complete form along with supporting documents to adr@adr.go.ke or deliver to the 7th floor of Block B, Ushuru Pension Towers, Upper Hill. That's my tax office. Tax issues to the sort out of court.
That's very effective communication, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So this thing of hiding from KRA utawacha.
Stop it.
Tuongee.
Yes.
Don't be afraid.
Tuongee. And I think si lazima ukuje.
No.
Just get in here, download the app, send an email, send supporting documents. A qualified tax expert will walk you through it and will resolve these issues.
You'll be all right.
We'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a tax expert from the Kenya Revenue Authority followed up after the email, came and joined me in the studio to tell me the same thing, one-on-one.
Just in case you didn't get the email.
That's how effective KRA is.
Just in case the email had not arrived.
Yes.
Tax expert is here. Yes. Peninnah Munga is from Kenya Revenue Authority. Good morning, Peninnah.
Good morning.
It's good to have you in the show.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
I don't have any tax issues or disputes, but I know people who have, and it's actually interesting. You'll tell us about all this. We are here to talk about all this tax information. There are very many people who, like we were saying earlier, people are willing to comply with the tax regulations and laws, but for lack of information, one. Number two, there's the fear of, what happens if I start dealing with this? What's going to happen to me? And all that is what KRA has been working on in the last couple of years, on trying basically to just remove all the layers that have been there previously and making KRA as accessible as possible. And we appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So, tax expert, let's talk about PIN registration.
Okay.
And there are many, many people. We're talking about, as you met with Mary when she was living, we're talking about SMEs. And she was telling us there are very many people who are running businesses. And one of the hurdles that they have is access to credit, access to finance. One of the issues that they are required to have is at least be registered. Come to me as some legal entity or the other. They don't even have a PIN certificate or PIN number. What's the importance of a PIN?
Okay. There are several uses of a PIN. Let me call them uses of a PIN. Number one, if you're running a business and you have a tax liability or you expect to have a tax liability, then you'd be required to register with the commissioner or KRA, and you'll be issued with a PIN once you register. Number two, there are some transactions you cannot actually transact in this country if you don't have a PIN number. For example, you cannot open a bank account, you cannot sell land, you cannot buy land, motor vehicle registration, among others. They are all listed in the first schedule of the Tax Procedures Act. They are quite a number. So a PIN is quite important. So once you register with KRA, then you'll be issued with a PIN or a personal identification number.
What really is it? What is a PIN?
A PIN is just a unique identifier that is used by the government to identify you as a taxpayer.
Okay.
Yes.
And nobody else has that number except you.
Yes.
So it means every transaction that you make is then known to the government.
Yes. Using that unique identifier.
And it's every citizen, whether individual or corporate.
Yes,
so
it's every
if I am
citizen.
Eric, I have my own PIN, and all the businesses that I open, and they have the tax liability, they'll also have their own unique identifier.
Okay, it depends. You can decide to operate your businesses as a sole proprietor. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, then your PIN as Eric will also be used for all your businesses and for all your tax purposes. But if you decide to incorporate these companies or even form partnerships with other people like Munga here, then you'll be required to have separate PIN numbers for those companies.
Yeah, our business has a PIN, a separate PIN
Okay.
that separates us. Now, I know this is a question that you've been asked many, many times.
Yes.
So I have an ID. This I've been told by the government. Nobody else has this number of
It is a
ID.
unique
It's a unique
identifier.
identifier for
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Why do I need another unique identifier for KRA that is in the same government?
But okay, for PIN, use it mostly for tax purposes. Okay, you'll discover that an ID is mandatory for every other citizen. A PIN number, if you don't have transactions listed in the first schedule and you don't have any other any tax liability to pay, then you won't require to have a PIN number.
Unless, of course, you want to have a bank account.
Yes, okay, that's what I've said.
See, now that's the thing.
There are those other transactions that you cannot transact without a PIN number.
So,
So
by
if-
and by,
Yes.
everybody will at some point
Have
then
to have
have
one.
to have a PIN. You'll open a bank account, you'll be required to have a PIN.
Yes.
You'll seek employment somewhere, you'll be deducted payee, you'll have to have a PIN. You'll start a business, you want to regularize your business so that you can run a business properly,
open
you'll
an
have
account,
an
like the
account,
rest of that, you
PIN.
must have a PIN.
Yeah, you must have a
For you
PIN.
to open a business, register a business, you'll have to have a PIN.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's mandatory.
It's not mandatory.
Yes.
Yes. As per the law,
It's not legally
mandatory.
mandated for you to have
yeah,
it.
it's not mandatory.
Okay, it's not
But
mandatory.
an ID is mandatory because you have to be identified as a Kenyan citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you find many people who have, at one point or the other, they registered their PIN, then that means that they have an obligation.
Yes.
So you went and registered a PIN because you were employed many years ago,
Yes.
and you were remitting pay as you earn,
Yes.
and then you were required to be filing your tax returns,
Yes.
and then you left that employment, and you haven't been employed again.
Yes.
You're running now a business as a sole proprietor, and you have basically not been doing any of these filings. So because you have a PIN,
Yes.
there are several obligations that you have, that you
Yes.
must have. So just give us individually as Eric, what basic obligations do I have?
Number one, income tax
Okay.
resident for an individual. Yes, as a sole proprietor, as a person, even as an employee of a company, you have to file your individual income tax returns at the end of the year. If you're running a business as Eric, not incorporated, then you have to file your income tax returns for individual.
Okay.
Now, let's say you're running a business and it's a small business and you feel that you don't want to keep all those complex records and you have to pay your income tax, then you have to register for turnover tax.
Okay.
If your business turnover is over 5 million per year, then in addition to these other income tax obligations, you'll be required to have a VAT obligation. Now, if you have employees who are earning amounts that are over 24,000 in a month, then you'd be required to have a pay obligation. If you're doing or you're running a business that you're selling excisable goods, then you'll be required to have an excise obligation. If you're dealing with excisable services like internet, you'd be required to have an excise obligation.
Okay.
Yes.
I think there are things within the business of paying taxes or realizing the obligatory process of these taxes that just happen to be kind of the run-of-the-mill terms that are used, and that if we look at it very clearly, a lot of people who run businesses or even do their individual have no idea what they are. So now when you talk about excisable, Can you explain so that we can understand exactly what it is and how then it affects you as an individual or as a business?
Okay. When you talk about excisable, okay, excisable can be either excisable goods or excisable services. There are two categories. You can either be a manufacturer of excisable goods or an importer of excisable goods. Now, as a manufacturer, there are goods that are categorized under the Excise Act as excisable goods. So if if you're dealing with those goods, then these goods are excisable and you must comply with the Excise Act. They include bottled water, alcohol, cigarettes, among others. Yes.
Okay.
Cosmetics. Excisable services will be looking at things like financial services, internet data, etc.
If you were to talk to a young Kenyan who just recently acquired an ID because legally they became an adult,
Yes.
and you wanted them to understand the benefits of adhering to tax obligations, okay? What are the things that you would tell this individual? Because they've never paid taxes in their lives, but they are going to start paying taxes at some point. So even before they get into this train, what would you want to tell them so that they can understand that this taxation that you hear of is actually a really good thing for you? Yes.
Okay, number one, any government cannot operate without taxes. Taxes are just the life, the blood life of any government. You cannot operate without taxes. Then how will we expect the government to give us drugs, education, the free education, infrastructure, etc., security, among others. So it's actually our duty as Kenyan citizens to pay taxes.
So essentially you'll be telling them that, you may not understand it, but the fact that you've gotten to where you are and you've gone to school, in the absence of taxes, some of these things that you've enjoyed all along
you cannot get
would not have been possible.
Exactly.
And in so doing, you'll probably be telling them that everybody contributes.
Yes.
So now that you're of age,
It's now your turn.
it's your turn to join
Part
the
of
group.
adulting
Yes.
is contributing.
Yes, it's part of our duty. It's part and parcel of our duty, and it's only fair if all of us pay our fair share of taxes.
There are many who, even they're adults, they're many years over 18, but they look back and they understand. They know people are paying taxes and everything, but they take pride in finding ways of not paying taxes. I'm sure you've interacted with very many people of this kind of this nature. What do you hear? What's the reason why people will try and cut corners so they don't pay tax? Is it because they're not patriotic? Is it because they don't understand what the importance of paying taxes? Or is it because they don't see the direct benefit of paying tax?
Okay, I think the three would apply. Some don't see the benefits, or they don't appreciate the benefits of paying taxes. And that's why we're here today, to just remind people that the government cannot run, actually. The security officers we see, the security we expect, especially in this season, we cannot have it without these taxes being paid. Number two, some people just, I think we call it tax morale. They just don't have it. We just want to evade, It's also, some people, it's just their nature. I don't want to pay. And also, in a way, if the government is not punitive enough to the offenders, again, people will be, Munga does not pay. Why can't I join him, But I'm not saying he doesn't pay. I'm not saying he doesn't pay, but you can say that. And others, it's out of ignorance.
Well, I've been hanged out to dry. Now people are listening this morning. No,
Not really.
KRA
I'll just give you an
Munga
example.
halipi tax.
Unajua nalipango 2 million.
Na halipi tax.
Anyways, on a lighter note. So you know somebody who does not pay tax, and then you see nothing has happened to them. So that also just encourages you to join that bandwagon.
And that's why it
Bandwagon,
should be
yes.
punitive enough if someone is caught as an offender. Either you're avoiding or you're evading tax, then it should be punitive.
Okay.
So that it can discourage the others.
So then when I hear you say that, and I hear previous messages that have come from KRA saying that, right, well, what we want to do is have a conversation with you and say that if you've not been able to do this, then let's sit down and see how we can come around with an installment payment kind of thing. So which is it? Are we saying if you're deliberately avoiding this, and then I guess proving that would be a bit of an uphill task, but then up until point X, this person has not paid or this entity has not paid, and we're saying come in and let's have a conversation? Or are we saying come in and let me slap the bracelets on you and then teach you a lesson for tomorrow?
Not really. And that's why KRA has started the Voluntary Tax Disclosure Program, VTDP. Yeah, we are telling you, if you've not disclosed your taxes, come disclose them. In the first year, which started this year from January to December, you'll have 100% waiver of penalties and interest. If you come the following year, 2022, disclose your taxes, you'll have a 50% waiver. If you come in the third year, then you'll have a 25% waiver of penalties and interest. So we are calling you come, disclose what you've not paid. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to ask. Now, does that fall into the category of a dispute then?
That's not a dispute, really. It's not yet a dispute. A tax dispute is when we issue you with an assessment or a tax decision, and then you feel it's incorrect, either based on the figures or the law. Then you can feel this is not correct. So you'd like to dispute that. You'd like to dispute that. So the first step of a tax dispute is objection. So you're going to object or to launch what we call an objection, which you can launch on iTax. That's the first step of a tax dispute. This will be reviewed by an independent body that falls still within KRA, and they'll issue you with what we call an objection decision. If you still feel that this was not reviewed in a fair way, you still have an avenue. You can appeal at the Tax Appeals Tribunal. The tribunal is totally independent. They'll review your affairs. If you still feel that the judgment or the ruling by the Tax Appeals Tribunal is not sufficient, you can still appeal at the High Court.
When you say the tribunal is independent, what do you mean?
It's actually an independent body.
It's not
separate from KRA.
It doesn't comprise of people who work in KRA.
No. It's independent.
So how do you choose? How are the members of this particular tribunal chosen?
By the Treasury.
So the Tax Dispute Tribunal is basically formed by the Treasury CS.
Yes.
And gazetted.
Yes.
And what does the Treasury CS consider in picking the members of the tribunal?
I think the qualifications. Yes.
Qualifications?
Yes.
Okay, now, given the diversity of businesses and individuals and issues that people have, I am going to assume that this board also, the members of this particular board will also come from a diversity of backgrounds.
Yes.
All right? So, okay, we've established that they'll have a diversity of background, but what else do they look for when they want to choose the board members? Apart from just maybe, let's say, for instance, you'll want an accountant. I'm giving you an example. Or you want somebody with a legal background. Okay. Beyond that, what other considerations are there? I'm going to explain to you why I'm asking this question. I have worked in research for a long time.
Yes.
And one of the things that they have within these research bodies is an independent board that comprises of, among other people, yes, experts in research, but just ordinary wananchi. You'll find a pastor, you'll find a village elder, somebody with a legal... It's actually quite an interesting mix. So it is from that background that I'm asking, that does this tribunal represent the diversity and mix of people who are likely to come to the tribunal with their issues? That's really what I'm asking.
Okay, not really, but professionalism. In terms of these will be judges, people with background in law, people with background in accounting, and also people who are ethical, in line with the Constitution.
Okay.
Yeah, so we expect objectivity.
Okay. So
And people who are in good standing.
Okay, so someone like Munga who doesn't pay taxes can't go into that board.
No, it depends. Do you have the necessary knowledge and expertise in tax matters and tax laws?
We continue talking about tax, and tax education is what we are having this morning. Peninnah Munga, tax expert from the Kenya Revenue Authority, joins us. Just as we took the break, I actually went around and looked at information on the Tax Appeals Tribunal. The tribunal comprises a chairperson and not less than 15, but not more than 20. So between 15 and 20 are the members appointed by the Cabinet Secretary upon such terms and conditions of service as the Cabinet Secretary may determine. Public servants, KRA employees like Peninnah, tax agents like, are ineligible to hold office in order to maintain impartiality. Okay, so those ones who are dealing directly with you on tax are not supposed to hold this office. Disputes are handled by panels that have at least 3 members, at least one of whom shall be an advocate of the High Court. And it hears appeals filed against any tax decision made by the Commissioner, and this is the KRA Commissioner General. These are heard and determined within 90 days from when the appeal is filed with the tribunal. They also have a time limit. Within 90 days of filing an appeal, it shall be heard and determined by a panel that comprises at least 3 members. One of them is an advocate of the High Court. Yeah? So there are ways of dealing with the disputes. A question that then comes in online from Abby. Abby says, KRA has set up the alternative tax resolution. Is it working, Peninnah?
Yes, it's working.
So now that we're talking about the dispute resolution, and you said not everything is a dispute. So define the dispute and then define the one that I received an email for. These alternative issues, KRA issues, let's sort them out of court.
Okay. I had defined a dispute, but I can repeat. It starts with an objection. You actually object based on either facts or law. Then after the objection decision is issued, you appeal at the Tax Appeals Tribunal. If you're still dissatisfied, then you appeal at the High Court.
Okay.
Now, at what point do you opt for alternative dispute resolution? At the Tax Appeals Tribunal level, you as the parties, both the Commissioner and the taxpayer, can opt to resolve the matters out of court. There's ADR, a totally different department that mediates these discussions. Now, you'll seek leave from the Tax Appeals Tribunal to resolve this matter out of court. Yes. But you can still opt to resolve this matter out of court at the High Court level. Then the parties are given 90 days to go engage using alternative dispute resolution and then file the settlement.
Okay. The standard, when you talk of alternate, then the implication is that there is a standard way of resolving disputes. And I assume the standard way is going to court.
Is that under the dispute?
Kenya has a graduated mechanism, dispute resolution mechanism.
Yes.
And that's why we started with an independent review body. People who are totally separate from the officers who maybe assessed you.
Yes.
All conducted that investigation.
But they are still within KRA.
But it's a separate unit. You see, for most of the tax assessments, they are issued under Domestic Taxes Department, all customs. Now, this body is domiciled under legal.
Okay.
And our legal unit. And it's totally different
So
officers.
it's a
who are
department that
independent.
just deals with this particular...
With objections.
Objections.
Yes.
That's all it does.
That's all it does.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And they're legal experts, non-tax experts.
They are
yeah.
tax experts.
So they review and then they give a decision.
They review, they'll call for records and submissions from the taxpayer and also from commissioner, and then they'll issue their objection decision.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you're dissatisfied, that's when now you go to the Tax Appeals Tribunal.
Yes.
If you're dissatisfied, you go to, or if either party is dissatisfied,
Yes.
it could actually even be KRA that
Yes,
is dissatisfied with the decision of the Appeals Tribunal.
Then you
go to the High Court.
Yes.
And at any of these stages, these 2 stages, you
Yes.
can opt for ADR.
Yes.
And within 90 days, then you come and report that we have agreed.
Yeah,
If
this
you
is
don't
what we've
agree,
agreed.
what happens?
If you don't agree, then the matter is referred back to either the Tax Appeals Tribunal or the High Court. Because both parties can feel that this is not a matter that we can resolve. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Masharia asks this morning to please shed some light on the new tax invoice management system and more about the new ETR machines, as a lot of businesses seem to be in the dark, and this could hamper them then from being compliant. So those are two issues there.
Okay, I think it's just one issue because basically Teams All Tax Invoice Management is the new system. It's actually still an electronic device. We're moving away from the ETR. The effective date was 1st August of this year, and there's a 12-month transition period within which a taxpayer is supposed to comply. Yes.
So what happens?
How?
Describe the difference now between Teams and what
The
we've been
ETR.
having, the
Now,
ETR machine.
The difference is for ETR, KRA does not have a real-time view of the transactions. When you come to Teams, it will be transmitting data. Once you invoice, it will be transmitting that data real-time to KRA servers.
So is it a device or is it a portal?
It's a device. There's a device you're actually installing.
That is connected to the internet,
Yes.
and it has constantly to be connected to the internet for it
Yes.
to work.
Yes.
And who's paying for that internet? The taxpayer.
The taxpayer is paying for the internet.
And if I'm not able to connect to this particular device that needs to be on the internet, then I would not be able to do what you require of me as a business owner, and then I'm not compliant.
Okay, there's the 12-month transition period where you can look into your affairs and see on how you can actually make arrangements on how to buy. If still within the 12 months you're still not able to, you can write to the commissioner. And that's why we're saying this morning that you can actually come to KRA and explain and get a workaround.
I guess the challenge, even from what Patrick is asking, is this transition period, and basically everybody just getting to understand. So previously, just take us through the pros and cons of the previous system, or what's still current, the ETR machine. What was it? How was it doing? And then now you can then tell us, this is now what's going to be different when you fully transition to Teams.
Okay, remember the VAs they've been complaining about, whereby I'll buy from him or I'll buy from her. Then I'll claim the input on my side.
Yep.
Then she does not declare
The output.
the output. And then at the end of the day, when KRA runs VA, the inconsistencies, then my input will be disallowed
Yes,
because of
I
that
see that all
previous
the time.
system.
So
Number two, it was really abused because people could just get the machine, the ETR machine, issue fake ETR invoices. And that's why we started with VA, cross-matching output and input. So in a way, it will help everybody because I'll know as long as I've bought from you and you have Teams and the machine, then I know you'll declare automatically.
okay.
Yeah.
So now assume you are going to, let's say, a supermarket,
Yes.
and you're purchasing things at the till. So the Teams is now going to be connected to this particular till, so that at every point as I'm purchasing, as this is being registered, it's also registering to KRA
Yes,
in real time.
in real time.
Okay, then I'm coming now within the 30 days as a business that bought these goods or this service. I'm now coming to file. So how shall I now indicate this? I when I go to the iTax, it will no longer be a
It's
problem.
actually supposed to auto-populate. If you've given your PIN number to the to your supplier, it's supposed to auto-populate because your supplier will key in the PIN number. It's supposed to actually auto-populate. Yes.
And the PIN number is known to KRA.
Quisha.
Yes. So whatever requires capturing will be captured.
Okay. What challenges do you foresee in this, in the rollout of the new system?
Okay. Maybe internet connectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in Kenya, internet connectivity remains an issue. Maybe that's the only issue I can see currently.
You know, I'm a dog with a bone on this particular one. Huh?
and immediately you reconnect to the internet, then the signal will send to
Oh, the data is
KRA.
sent.
Yeah, the signal will send.
Brave new world, isn't it?
Oh, why?
So I don't think it will really be an issue.
So it doesn't matter if you're not connected at the point, just key in the information, and then when connection is reestablished,
Then the signal
it transmits.
Will, yes.
Okay.
Ah, yeah.
All right.
Cynthia.
Yeah. Okay, so Cynthia also asks, purchasing the ETR machine was not easy on many pockets. I remember the time when everybody was then being asked as a business to purchase one and everybody wasn't, straits. Is KRA going to purchase them back in exchange for the TIMs? It's punitive to small businesses.
Oh, wow. Okay. Not very sure about that. But remember, for ETR, you are allowed to claim the initial purchase price as your input. Yeah. The people who complied within the period,
Yeah.
then they were able to recoup that back. Yes.
No, repeat that again. So,
At the time of rolling out ETR,
yes,
you went and purchased.
yes.
You were allowed within a certain window to claim that.
Whatever I had purchased,
Yes.
whatever I had spent,
Yes.
I was allowed to reclaim that money.
Yes. If you complied
Within a certain window.
The certain
Certain
period.
Now, there are people who opened their businesses and they complied immediately by buying an ETR machine. That one and water.
So you didn't bear that cost, at the end of the day.
All right. So there.
So for teens, maybe what I can say, KRA is still sensitizing people, taxpayers, and they're going round and they're doing sensitizations. So they should be on the lookout.
How exactly are they doing the sensitization? When you say they're going around,
The same way, media houses, maybe next week we'll have somebody from Teams, social media, Facebook, Stories za Ushuru, podcasts, stakeholder engagements. We normally have taxpayer education sessions. Yes.
I think a lot of information is like you. I'm sure you've dealt with very many people, and every time things that you thought are pretty obvious keep cropping up as questions.
Yes.
Because every new day you have new people who are registering businesses, you have people who are entering into business for the first time, people who are registering for PIN for the first time, and they have no clue what the obligations are. Okay? Now, as an organization, as an institution, KRA, is there a plan of seeing how you can avoid this by being proactive in at this points of information? Like City was asking earlier, people when they're still in school, that you understand once you get out, this is it. You will register, you become 18, you get employed, register for PIN, or you want to start a small business, register for PIN. Then you're running a small business and it's 5 million and below. Turnover tax is where you go. You're 5 million and above, VAT, accessible, all those things. I think, is there a plan to capture them at an earlier age?
Yes, actually they are captured.
Okay.
I'd say they're captured because KRA has even engagements with school. There are schools that have even tax clubs. Yeah, so KRA has been going around even in schools and educating students at a young age the importance of compliance and taxes. If you go to the Facebook page, Stories za Ushuru, you'll get quite a number of podcasts and webcasts, Twitter engagements. So this is done quite often. Yes.
And it's impressive
And it's
because
on all taxes, actually.
you're using
It's
the
on all
platforms
taxes.
where many of the new taxpayers are to be found, and these are
Yes.
digital platforms. Let's talk about turnover tax for a bit.
Okay.
There's still a lot of confusion about turnover tax, and at what point you pay turnover tax and who qualifies, who pays for turnover tax. So just start from
Okay.
scratch. Assume we don't know anything.
Okay. Let me first by defining what turnover tax is. Turnover tax is a type of income tax to start with, and it's payable by businesses on your gross sales or your turnover. And this is in line with Section 12C of the Income Tax Act. So that's what turnover tax is, and it's payable at 1% of your gross sales. Let me repeat that again, 1% of your gross sales. So for example, if your gross sales in a month are 3 million, then you'll just calculate 1% and remit to KRA.
So, and we're talking about is there a specific size of business?
Yes. now the businesses that are eligible for turnover tax should have a turnover of 1 million to 50 million shillings annually, or maybe 83,000 Kenya shillings to 4.2 million Kenya shillings per month.
Let me ask this question, because for the longest time, I have always understood that tax on businesses is related to the profits that you make.
Yes.
So now, if I have a huge turnover, but I'm actually not making any profit, don't you think such a tax would discourage me?
If you have a huge turnover, then you'd fall obviously out of the 50 million bracket. So you'll be required to file
considering
the normal
49 million
income
as
tax
huge.
return. Yeah.
Actually, we're thinking of 49 million 900.
Yes, that's
Oh,
very
you're-
huge turnover.
Okay, you can opt not to. You can opt not to be on turnover tax by
can
not
opt?
registering. Yes,
And it's
by
legal.
not registering.
But what City is asking is the,
So
is the
you'll
principle
still be
behind
required.
it.
Mm.
The
The
principle
principle
here
behind-
is that I'm operating a business.
Yes.
I am making sales.
Yes.
I'm getting these revenues coming in. But then I have such high costs that I'm actually not even making much in terms of margin here. Now you are taxing me on the gross sales, not factoring in the cost of doing this business and how much profit I've made. So is this not, if it's a form of income tax, this is not an income yet.
It is an income because you have an option. You have an option. Number one, you can opt for the normal income tax returns. Okay? Where you'll declare your sales, deduct your expenses, and then you pay at 30%. No, this is quite lower because it's at 1%. And it's straightforward. It's on your gross sales. So depending on your calculations and your business margins, you can either opt for TOT or the normal income tax. Yes.
So you have, it is within your, you have wiggle room to decide whether you want to pay turnover or whether you want to do this regular income.
Yes.
Okay. So because I think it was important to get that out, because the way it came about was that in addition to, then you still had to pay the turnover tax.
No, it's not in addition to.
Okay.
It's not in addition to. If you're on normal income tax, you're filing your normal income tax returns at the end of the year, then you don't have to be on turnover. And then remember, turnover tax is a final tax. So if you file your turnover tax, if you file and pay your turnover tax, that's a final tax. That's it.
Okay. So this monthly 20th of the month kind of story,
Yes.
if that, and now KRA will be able to know, come December and you sort out all your processes and you do your turnover tax at the end of the year, then you will not get that reminder come the 20th of January and the 20th of February that you must do one or the other thing because you've understood that this person is actually going the turnover way.
Yes, if you've registered for turnover tax, then we don't expect you to have the
Income tax
income
obligation.
tax obligation.
Can you opt out of income tax obligation and go to turnover
No,
tax?
you cannot opt.
If
You
you're already in
cannot
income
opt out.
tax, that's it. You're stuck
Then
there.
you pay, but you can apply. You can still apply to the commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one, if we understood it correctly, it was targeting, it was looking at expanding widening the tax bracket.
Yes.
Going for the small businesses that were not in the net yet.
Yes.
And saying, let's simplify this thing for you so that you are running a business hassle-free. You just know these are the sales that I made, declare the sales, pay your 1%, and let's move to the next month.
Yes.
What's the uptake been like?
The uptake has been good. I'd say the uptake has been good.
And what kind of businesses are
if you
registering for
compare,
this?
if you compare with the previous turnover tax that was suspended, that one was at 3%. So when it was reintroduced, it was reintroduced at 1%. So the intake, the partake has been good. Yeah.
What kind of businesses are registering for TOT?
Small businesses. I'd say all small businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly small businesses.
And they,
As long as you're within.
within these brackets
Yes.
of 1 million to 50 million
Yes.
in a year, then people are coming in and they're registering. Are they complying regularly, or do they require a lot more information, a lot more sensitization and training on then compliance, the compliance side?
Okay, taxpayer education, actually that is reminding people on the need to be compliant, is ongoing. And it's a continuous thing, even for KRA. Because most of the taxpayers, you have to remind them that you need to comply, you need to pay the taxes until we get to where the tax morale is a bit up. Yeah, but most people file and they pay voluntarily. Yes.
One of the issues that we hear all the time when we have conversations about tax is the cost of compliance.
Okay.
People find it difficult. So just not being able to maneuver through iTax. Now we're going to have the teams not being able to run your ETR. So you end up having to outsource these services. It's a cost. If you just got delayed because you are filing your returns on the 20th and there was internet challenge, it falls on, you file at 1 a.m. on the 21st, there's already a penalty accruing. So this cost of compliance is an issue.
Okay, that's why turnover tax is here. Number one, it's simplified. So you don't need the services of a professional accountant when you're talking about turnover tax. 1% of your gross sales, you can do it because gross sales we all maintain. You don't have to go checking on all the receipts to compute the expenses. So it's simplified. Number two, you can file and pay using the KRA M-Service app using your phone. You don't have to go look for a computer, internet, and pay. You'll just do it from the comfort of even your house.
Right.
Number three, you can even use a USSD code, *572# to file and pay for turnover tax. So it's quite simple and cheaper, much, much cheaper.
It's been simplified
Yes.
to a great extent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peninnah, for joining us today. As we conclude the conversation, just one final message in about a minute to everybody who's listening on the relationship between a taxpayer and KRA.
I'd say the taxpayers are customers and we view them as such. So if you have any issues, you should feel free to come to Times Tower, ground floor, or any other tax service office that is near you. You can even call. Thank you.
And you can also go online, I'm sure.
Yeah, you can be on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. KRA is all over. We'll be there to serve you. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you too.
And thank you for all the questions that have come in and those that we've been able to pose to Peninnah. Peninnah Munga is a tax expert with the Kenya Revenue Authority. We were just doing a little bit of tax education. Some of these questions keep cropping up and people assume that they know until they hear something like, okay, that one I didn't know that. So it's important that we keep having these conversations so we can have more and more people then, that thing we're saying, people having the morale to pay tax and to be able to engage with KRA, to feel that KRA is approachable. KRA don't just come and knock on your door and put a padlock and go. You know, they are human.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.